Hi, good morning. Today is Sunday, December 13, and I don't know, I just wanted to say a couple things. I'm not even sure what I'm going to title this video, but, you know, I, I don't think people really understand um, how mean and how degrading and how racism and sexism and bullying in the workplace hurts. And I am actually, like, I don't even know what to say other than to just express, what's coming from my core. And, like, I just can't even begin to, like, read from a script and then talking to a camera and use that way as a method of trying to process, the impacts of racism. And I think we really have to have some kind of social discussion around what exactly is this thing racism, because, like, from my perspective, I was never actually raised in a family household where we were taught to, like, look at somebody different from us, and as little kids start making fun of them, and like these words that some people use, like at the time when I was, God, I can't even remember, but I don't want to date myself either. But when I was a little girl in elementary school in Prairie, Alberta, Canada, um, I remember this white girl, and she was of English descent because her parents were from somewhere in Britain, and or England, Britain, and she called me nigger, and I just kind of looked at her and I was like, what? Like, it hurt my heart. And I can't even remember if at the time I understood what the word meant. I just knew that something had come out of her mouth that was really hurtful because of her body language, and, just, she looked like something was wrong with her. So, anyways, I remember when she said that to me, like, I kind of went up to her and I said, pardon me. And she said, oh, you're a nigger. And the reason why she said that was because I was actually chosen to be the team leader for a track and field relay team. And I think this was back in like maybe the 80s or early 90s. No, I think the 80s, yeah, the 80s. And that shit hurt. I was just like, that's coming from your mouth. And I used to run out down to her house and, play dolls and, like, sit down and talk and just do different things. And what was interesting was, I think after high school, so I don't know, 10 years later or something, um, I was still running track and field, and I saw her with, like, one of my friends who was like a boxer, and I was like, what the fuck is he doing with a racist woman? So I was gonna tell him, say, look, man, you see that chick? She's a fucking racist. And what the fuck are you doing with a racist white woman, right? And then I said to myself, no, he's got to learn himself. So, anyways, I'm saying that to say that, people, like, in the adult world, like, you need to just kind of check yourself a little bit and just understand, like, you know looking at, like, my own life, and just sort of developments and stuff, like, some children have the ability to be free spirited children from their childhood straight up through their adulthood to death, or, sorry, transition into the realm of the ancestors. And then there are adults like myself that are, like, blocked from, pursuing our dreams and just being little free spirited because we have to deal with just the shock of, like, just such ignorance and meanness, and what I call is pathological. And I don't know why they haven't had like a discipline set up yet to seriously deal with people, seriously deal with this racism, because there's nothing nice about racism. Like, a racist, instead of like, targeting that black woman who, you know, is trying to take care of her kid, who's a single parent, maybe her spouse was killed through police profiling, or accessory after the fact, or who knows. And instead of profiling her as, being like, you know, um, subject to be medically profiled, um, leave her the fuck alone. And, stop with these fucking stories saying, oh, she's got like, um, I just hate using some of these words, but I remember one person said to me, it was actually a coach, a black coach, when I was in Ontario, Canada, a black coach from Jamaica, really like, boy, he was really like, really good. Like, I noticed that between black coaches and white coaches, but the black ones from Jamaica and black males, they're like very, very strategic, and, they like work with not trying to turn you into this like beast so you can just make money, but they just actually get into the heart of what is going on with you, as well as how things are going on in your environment. And one of the things that he said to me that will always resonate with me from now until, even transitioning into the realm of the ancestors, is he said to me, when you're going through some difficulties, you got to actually confront the difficulty. And he said, like, even when you have pain, the first thing that, well, it depends on like your upbringing. Like me personally, I have a very high pain tolerance threshold, and I can take a lot of pain because I was subject to some indecencies, and when I was younger. And as a result of that, that just made me more hardcore. And when I say hardcore, it just sort of helped me to build my own resistance. And I can take a lot of pain. So one of the things he said to me is that when you experience the pain, confront the pain. And so racism is a kind of emotional pain, but it's also a physical pain, and it's also an economic pain, and it's also a very strategic and also tax implication kind of pain. And I'm just kind of talking in a way to process my thoughts, because I really have to wonder sometimes, like, who the fuck are these people in the adult world in Diversity, Ontario, to begin with, in Canada? And when I go to, like, my diaspora, well, one of them is Jamaica, Black Jamaica, we don't even have shit like this. Like, people just kind of look like, what? Like, what's wrong with them? Is there something genetically wrong? Like, and then you come to Canada, and I grew up in the prairies, and I was socialized to just be like very free spirited, and I just had that innate curiosity in me, and I would just drive my parents crazy, because I was always asking questions. So but one of the persons that seemed to really bring that creativity out in me is my, I hate using like these words, but basically he's my father. He's not my genetic donor father, but he's my father because he actually adopted me and my brother when we were like little babies, like I think maybe just a couple months old, maybe 6 months old or so. And you know, he actually like taught me little games, and taught me how to laugh, and taught me like little tricks, like about like how to manage money and use like coins, and I don't know, different things. Like he used to just sit down and look and talk, and then the week before he died, or sorry, the week before he was found dead. Um, I remember we were laughing on the phone, and it was just interesting because how many decades later as a big girl, right? And when I say big girl, like, in adult years, um, you know, he was still doing the same thing, and it was so cute. And then there's the genetic donor who, has been trying to come into my life, and you know, I don't know what his purpose is, but I'm not going to be disrespectful to him. And I really thought about it. Like, I'm like, why should I even deal with this guy? Because when we were babies, if he really loved us, he would have bust down the friggin' whatever to try and find us. And this is like some university graduate from, a university in the province of Alberta, Canada, and also a PhD person. And his thing was genetics and using ultraviolet ultraviolet sunlight to cure cancers, and he actually conceptualized something that was actually what do you call it, plagiarized. And he actually read about it in a magazine. So I'm saying this to say that people who actually practice racism, you gotta go and deal with that disease, because that shit is very dysfunctional. And I think I have to do a separate piece on sexism, because sexism isn't nice. Like, it's really hurtful, and it's makes you feel really uncomfortable. Like, what does that level of comfort feel like, or uncomfortableness feel like? And sorry, I'm just still getting used to speaking into a camera, but we really have to understand here. And I'm sorry if I look like this, but I was just like, you know what, I really love using the camera, because what the camera does is it captures your thoughts, and it helps to process things. And I can go back and look at the camera and say, okay, well, look at my face there, like, what happened? And, like, I can see things beyond the superficial. So what exactly was my thinking? And how did I actually follow through in my thinking? And is my thinking based on practicing a theory that I learned, or a theory that I actually am testing while still developing, stuff related to the academy and other things. Excuse me. So I just wanted to say, racism is not funny. And I think for me, like, I'm like, I would just love to be on some kind of show and just talk about it. But what I find, and when I say talk about it, like, that could even be like the title for a show, just talk about it. I don't know. But racism is very destabilizing, and it's never made me cry, but it's made me, like, just shocked. Like, wow, that's pretty fucked up to think like that. And it's made me wonder, like, in the past, I was like, you know what, let me help these people. Let me just say to them that, you know what, you can actually learn how to unlearn racism, and then share my technique. But, there's, like, this thing where you gotta go through, like, this whole, like, the process of, like, getting licensed or whatever to have your own practice. And I'm like, I'm not going through that bullshit again. And bullshit to learn, like, what the white man says about my brain, and what the white female says about my brain, like a racist white female, what the racist Asian says about the black female, and like going through all that kind of bullshit and just like being emotional. Not, I don't even know what the word is, but I'm just speaking through my thoughts. And I don't believe in editing. I believe that, you know what, you capture your 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 spirit. I'm not a religious person, but by spirit I mean the core, what is inside of you. And the best way to capture that is actually through camera, and start out with videoing yourself. And I've come a long ways, let me tell you, because I didn't even want to see myself on camera. And then when somebody's in Florida, black male in Florida, USA, said, no, 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 you should try it, because I laughed at his videos. God, I used to just like rush home from whatever I was doing just to watch his videos and have a good laugh on YouTube. And his name is actually J.T. Riley. If you look up his stuff, like look at the stuff that he actually created, it is so funny, because like there's all these like YouTube fights and people calling him nigger and stupid dumbass and all this, and it's shocking, right? And like, people are like, oh, we're gonna like kill you and blah blah blah. But in the black community, we're very expressive, and sometimes people use words and they kind of take them out of context, other people. So like we may say something, oh, we're gonna bust your ass or whatever, and are we really gonna get a machete and chop them up? No. So racism is very, very, it's pathological. And I don't know, we need to talk about that, I think. So I don't know, I'm just kind of like how do you begin to talk about things that you feel uncomfortable talking about? And that's the one thing I'm starting to learn about using film and being comfortable speaking on camera, is to just speak, 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 and forget about trying to sound like, very polished. Personally, I don't like people colonizing my self-expression and my verbal expression. And I don't speak very fast, and I don't write fast, and like I ponder things, and like when I think through things, for me, like I visualize it first, and then I map it all out. And I want to thank, like, actually the second university that I went to in central Canada for actually bringing out that different learning ability ease in me. So letting me know that, you know what, you don't have to be colonized in your development of your intellectual stuff. You can actually use and use what works for you. So like mind maps and stuff, like I would write essays and I'd be like, what the fuck? And so what I would do is like, okay, you know what, I can't write sentences, but let me draw it out first. And you know what, I didn't actually complete the written piece of the essay, but I still aced essays just based on my mind maps. And I was like, you know what, these are some fucking awesome professors that, and I'll get into that, like they were white, female, and lesbians. And they were like, oh, and then the white males were like, especially like in this discipline that I was in, and still developing, it's just predominantly white men, Asian men, and I'm the only black woman, no black men. And I would present some stuff and they'd be like, how did you learn to think like that? And then that just told me, you know what, like, what are you doing in a job like this? Right? You have your tenure position and you can't even begin to flower things. And then you have like white females, heterosexuals, who are like, oh, I do this, that, and they can really self-express, but behind the scenes they say, oh, I'm sorry, but you need to speak properly. And I remember one bitch said that to me, and she's like talking about women's rights and all this like really funny things. I actually thought her stuff was cool. And then I used to leave her messages like, I really like, and just reflecting on like how her stuff impacted me. And I thought, well, that would be nice for them to also hear feedback, because my advantage is that I actually learned a lot of stuff in the corporate world first, and then I returned to university. I started university first, and then I was just like, this is bullshit. So then I got into the corporate Canada and corporate Prairie Canada, and learned some like awesome skills, and I'll be forever thankful to including the oil companies as well as the financial industry companies and company, I should say, excuse me, and how like learning about like executives, like they have really nice shoes, especially the men, and well, sorry, I learned that most of the executives were men, which I thought was kind of weird, because I was like, how come I don't see myself there? And when I say that, I mean like representations of like something that I could aspire to, right? And but they were really nice, like these executives, and I think I'm gonna do another video about like, just like the whole executive thing in corporate Prairie Canada, and just giving thanks to them for really propelling a lot of like gifts that they saw in me. And that's what I really like about Prairie Canada, is that if you really want to work, people come out of the woodworks and they're like, okay, did you know about this? Did you know about this? Did you know about this? And they just help you flower. But in Ontario, which is supposed to be the diversity heartland for Canada, it is some serious bullshit. Like, when you want to work, the first thing they think is, oh, another fucking nigger. And it just comes out in their presentation. And you know what's really interesting is that it's actually from these people that always say, well, we came and, we thank like the Trudeau government for bringing us into the country. And I'm like, you know what, you guys are fucking pieces of ignoramus, piece of shits. And something is, I think, genetically defective in them. And Filipino, Italian, white-skinned Italian, I had a native person call me nigger in downtown Toronto, and I was like, what? And I was raised around a lot of like Aboriginal folks in the prairies, and they just grabbed me and they're like, let us show you something. And I was like, holy smokes, right? But I don't know why that person, excuse me, called me that. And racism hurts. It really does. And you know what? They need to have more social discussions. Like, I really think so some of these social media outlets, like, I'm like, what the fuck is a social media? Like, I want no TV, nothing. But like Facebook is a fantastic like tool. Like, I personally use it as an educational discussion tool, and I also use like it to help me conceptualize different theories that I've learned, and also theories that I have actually um, created, developed, thought of. And what I find on my Facebook is that like I post a lot of like provocative stuff that would just get people fucking angry. And sometimes I say, do I want like, these non-black people to see my work? And I'm like, you know what, I don't give a shit. So whatever person finds me on Facebook, I'm like, hey, no problem. Because maybe they'll learn something from my page, because I post on like a lot of stuff from an unconventional perspective. And I've received like a lot of like hundreds of like commentaries about like, wow, you post some really interesting things, and oh no, you're a bitch, and you're a gender, what did they call it? Like, I like to start gender wars in the black community or whatever. So I don't know. I have a soft spot for giving back to what has made me, and what has made me and resurrected me are the creative chocolates out there. And they're like, you know what, you look like you're actually trying to think through racism. And I just fucking laugh, and I'm like, oh, it's nice somebody understands, and then they offer a perspective. So I'm just doing freeform right now, and we got to do something better, seriously, because this racism, and starting from Ontario, it's got to stop. It really has to stop, because what's dangerous about it is that it's no longer white folk. These are actually people of color. And I've had like a Filipino chick, and I remember one time I was like, yeah, let me get into this organization, let me flower, blah, blah, blah. So I got the interview, and this bitch just threw down my resume. Oh, your resume is too long. And I just kind of said, I was going to say to her, like, first of all, I used to work for this organization, and I actually was a lot higher than you were. So if you don't even have the capacity to sit down and read, maybe that resume is telling you a story about something. And if you don't even have the basic capacity for literacy in Canada, then what the fuck are you doing in this position? But then I said to myself, you know what, I'm trying to build my economics and, experience economic mobility. So, how do I like be strategic with just such shock? And that was my first experience with the colored version of racism, because I just looked into this person's body language and the way she just threw down my resume, and I thought to myself, you know what, I wonder if I should actually write the president of that organization and just express to him, like, that stuff really hurts, especially when you're just trying to, you know, develop your, I don't even know what the word is, I'll just say whatever comes to mind. When you're trying to develop your career, and you see a person of color, first of all, I'm like, oh, thank God, there's a person of color. But I'm sorry, right, I've gotten to the point since being in Diversity Ontario, Canada, is that I'm like, you know what, I don't even want to deal with these fucking people of color, because something is fucking wrong with them. Because what they've done is they've actually internalized the supremacy of whiteness, and I didn't even know there was such a thing like that. And I was reading some of my, like, I always go back and read my comments on my videos, and like, geez, I hear it all or whatever, and people making fun, or you're speaking, you don't make sense and stuff. And then I could say, well, actually, I used to have a stuttering problem. But you know what, I just, when you come with that kind of intention to begin with, then I don't know where next to really go with this person. And sometimes these people, what I've learned is that they come to you because they want to be your friend. And but I'm sorry, that's actually violence, and I don't welcome violence towards black women. So I don't accept it, and I don't just tolerate and pray. What I do is I reflect on it, and then I just map out strategically in a mind map way to begin, is how do I actually move forward with a zero tolerance response. So yeah, sorry, a response. And also too, I'm just thinking, a response to also change the infrastructure, because something is really wrong when there's a model out there that obviously doesn't work for everybody. So anyways, the whole point of this video is just to reflect on racism and how it hurts. And I'm not gonna like edit and put in music and like sparkles and all this kind of shit. I'm just gonna like speak it. And maybe I should do some silent videos about racism, like black and white films, and just film the experience of racism, don't say a damn thing, and then get people to understand from what they see what exactly is racism and how does it make a person feel. And getting back to this comment, I was reading like I guess YouTube kind of said